5, 6 years old, I used to live on this farm. My mother and dad in East LA, they got divorced. And my mom took me back to Missouri where her family was. And her mom and dad had a farm. And so this was during the war, World War II. My mom now is single. She's a young lady and she needed a job. So she found a job at her sister's husband's factory. Her sister married a man who had a machine shop, a factory. So my mom got a job in this factory and they were making war material for war, for the government. And meanwhile, while she's doing that, I'm staying at the farm with my grandparents.
A farm
And
baby.
the only kid, the closest kid, was like from here to Wadsworth.
That's
That
kind
was
of
about
far.
the distance. So he was a year older than me. I used to go over there and we became friends. He was the only kid.
Yeah.
There were other kids, but they lived farther.
Hmm.
So the closest kid was Earl. Okay, so Earl and I, we became real good pals. We were very young. And then there was forests. My grandfather and grandmother on their farm, they had big forests. They had 150 or 160 acres, a lot
That's
of
a
land.
lot.
A lot of land. There were patches of forests. Well, one of these patches of forest, you'd have to walk down the hill, past the hog pen. They had hogs, they had cattle, they had horses. We'd go, and there was a great big pond at the bottom with a creek going through it. And I have walked that creek as a little boy for miles. I found turtles. Anyway, I would go through that forest and I found remnants of real old automobiles from the 20s, from even probably earlier. They were just frames rusting away. And then Earl and I, one day, we decided we're gonna go through that forest because there was an old man who lived on the other side, and his name was Mr. Banus. Mr. Banus was very old when I was like 5 or 6. He was like my age now, like 80, 85, maybe even older, I don't know. The first time I ever drove a car or steered a car was Mr. Banus's car, and it had isinglass curtains. It was like a 1920s car. And he let me sit on his lap. He took my grandmother and I to town where she could go get some groceries. And he let me steer that car. But anyway, we were going to go through the forest. And when we got to the other side of the forest, there were about 3 or 4 houses on the inside. And one night we get there.
At night?
Yeah, it was just turning dark. And so we were looking through the window of this house. There was a light, and so we kind of snuck up. And there was a little heavy-set man. And he's walking back and forth. And then he had on a bathrobe, and he took that bathrobe off, and he had a tail. It was a thick tail. It wasn't long. And we thought, oh my God. And then it was almost like he knew somebody was watching him.
Was it a fleshy tail?
Yeah,
Or
he was a
furry?
banshee.
flesh.
A banshee?
A banshee,
A
and then
banshee.
we looked, and then he stopped and he turned around like he knew somebody's watching. He turned and suddenly looked at it at the window, and he went, ah! And we took off running back through the woods, and running as fast, and we could hear him running.
Oh my God, he was chasing
That's so
With his
scary.
tail.
Well, that's the story I told your mother and I told Kristen. Now you've heard the story. We never went back to that camp.
Crazy.
If you ever want to see what
Scary.
a banshee looks like, Google one.
Okay.
Don't look, Louie.
What do you want me to build?